Part of personal development must be refined in the marketplace, because the marketplace is where your knowledge, skills, and behavior come together to produce results. If you want to succeed in the marketplace, the first step is to study your market. Be a student. If you're in the South, study the South. What are the customs, the preferences, the behaviors? If it's the North, understand how it's different. California isn't Brooklyn, and Brooklyn isn't California. Each market has its own culture, its own rules. The more you understand these differences, the better you can serve, connect, and succeed. But here's something even more important: your personal behavior. It's not just about what you know or the product or service you provide. A big part of your future success, economically and otherwise, depends on how you conduct yourself. How do you affect the people you interact with? That's a question worth asking, because the answer will determine your opportunities, your income, and ultimately your future. Now let's focus on one critical aspect of your behavior in the marketplace: your language. Your language matters. In fact, it's one of the most powerful tools you have, or one of the biggest obstacles if you're not careful. Bad language has no place in the marketplace. It's too costly. Sure, in casual settings, you might get by with a dirty joke or a little profanity, but in the marketplace, that's a different story. When you use bad language, you risk isolating a large part of your audience. Customers, clients, colleagues, who might otherwise help your business grow. They might not tell you directly, but they'll quietly choose to take their business elsewhere. Why? Because your words didn't align with the professionalism they expected. Here's the good news: good language offends no one. You don't hear people complain because you didn't cuss or tell a dirty story. In fact, good language invites connection, trust, and respect. So if you want to do well in the marketplace, be mindful of your words. Yes, there are spaces where informal language might be fine, your close circle, your private life, but when you step into the marketplace, you've got to operate with intention and professionalism. Study your market, refine your behavior, and above all, master your language. Because in the end, the words you choose will either open doors or quietly close them. Now, bad language, for the people who use it, it's perfectly acceptable. They've got no problem with it. But here's the question: what about the people who don't use it? What about the ones who do have a problem with it? That's where the trouble starts. So why not operate on the safe side? Here's the key. In the marketplace, you want to lean on the conservative side when it comes to behavior. Of all the places to be conservative, this is the one. Why? Because when you're conservative, you offend almost no one. That's the goal in the marketplace. Don't let something as simple as a careless habit or a poorly chosen word shut you out of opportunities. And language. That's one of the biggest areas to watch. Now, it's not just about profanity or dirty jokes. Sure, those are obvious. But there's something else you've got to be mindful of. The language you use in your professional world versus the language you use with the outside world. Here's the phrase to remember: beware of using inside lingo in the outside world. Think about the computer guys from years ago. They developed their own technical language, words and phrases that made perfect sense to them. But when they started selling computers to the public, they ran into a major problem. Customers couldn't use the product, not because it didn't work, but because they didn't understand the language. So what did they have to do? They had to shift gears. Among themselves, they kept using their technical jargon, but in the marketplace, they made their language user-friendly. They adjusted so people could understand. That's the point. Inside language is fine for your small group, your team, your community, but when you're in the marketplace, you've got to make sure you're speaking a language that connects. Once a man said to me, "We've got to get into the Word." Now, I had no idea what he meant. Into the Word. How small would you have to be to get into the Word? Then he said, "We need to stay in the Word." I thought, how long do we have to stay? Later, I found out he was talking about the Bible. Getting into the Word meant reading the Bible more, spending time with it, drawing ideas and inspiration. And that made sense. But at first, it sounded strange. See, in his group, that language worked just fine. But outside of his group, it didn't translate. Now, here's the next one. Habits. Here's one. Smoking. I don't smoke. Except for a fine cigar after a unique meal. But imagine walking into an office and saying, "Where's your ashtray?" No, ashtrays probably mean what? They don't smoke here. Now, you could say, "I'll smoke wherever I please," and sure, that's your choice. But here's the reality. If you knew what it was costing you to insist on that habit in certain environments, you might think twice. I'm not talking about whether smoking is right or wrong. I'm talking about the cost of being careless in the marketplace. Careless habits, whether it's language, behavior, or anything else, can wipe out entire chunks of your audience. Chunks that could have bought your product, hired your services, or opened doors for you. Now, let me share something I had to work on myself. Being late. For people who are always late, what do they care? They're not there when you get there, so it doesn't matter to them. But if you're serious about making progress in life, and especially in the marketplace, let me tell you what's universally acceptable. Being on time. Being late. Sure, it's acceptable to some people. But here's the reality. To others, it's going to cost you. And here's the key. You don't always know who it's costing you. It might be a client, a colleague, or someone who had the power to open a big door for you, but your lateness turned them off. If you're careless about your language, careless about your habits, or careless about being late, just take a moment to calculate what that carelessness could cost you over time. I mean, really add it up. In 1 year, in terms of income, lost opportunities, or misconnections, it might be more than you think. Let me give you an example. Say there's a guy who could be making $200,000 a year. That's what his talent, skills, and opportunities are worth. But instead, he's stuck at $80,000. Why? Because of 3 things he's careless about. His habits, his language, and his punctuality. That's too expensive, don't you think? It costs too much. One time I asked a man what his television set cost. He said, about $300. I said, no, I'm not asking what it costs to buy it. What does it cost you to watch it? That's the real question. You've got to add up what it's costing you to sit there hour after hour. And I told him, in my opinion, that TV is costing you about $35,000 a year. Now, this was some years ago. Adjust for inflation, and it's probably closer to $100,000 today. Owning the TV, that's cheap. Watching it, that's expensive. And it's the same with being careless in your life. You've got to ask yourself, what's this costing me over time? A little lateness here, some sloppy habits there, and over a year, maybe that's costing you $50,000, $100,000, even more. So here's the question. Isn't that too much to pay for being careless? And I think we all know the answer. Yes, it's far too expensive. Now, here is the next one, dress. How you present yourself is incredibly important. I had to learn this lesson myself. For example, did you know that white socks don't go with a black tuxedo? I didn't. What did I know? I had to figure it out. But it's not just about socks and tuxedos, it's about your overall appearance. Your deportment, your public presentation, the way you carry yourself. These are the areas where your fortune and your future are being shaped. And here's the key. Be conservative. Pay attention to the details. Ask yourself, what am I doing that could be offensive? What's costing me more than I realize? Sometimes it's the smallest things that make the biggest difference. Here's a good tip. Find someone close to you, someone you trust, and ask for their advice. Not to criticize you, no one wants that, but to help you. There's a difference between being critical and being helpful. Find someone who can give you feedback on your dress, your manners, your little habits. Those small adjustments can have a huge impact. I remember doing a program not long ago, a short 45-minute segment, and the title was Things My Mother Taught Me. Just a few simple lessons, but they made all the difference. Mama said, sit up straight. Why? Because she had a vision for my future. She could see me as someone who walked with confidence. Chin up, shoulders back. It wasn't about being mean or strict. It was about preparing me to be the kind of person who could walk into any room and make an impression. She taught me other little things too. Learn to say yes, sir, and no, sir. I love that about the South. It's part of their culture. That kind of respect and politeness has a way of opening doors. Mama also taught me don't stand too close when you're talking to someone. Leave a little space. You've met those people who get just a bit too close, haven't you? And what do? You try to create some space. Subtly, of course, so it's not offensive. Why? Because too close is too close. She even quoted me ancient scripture. Go not often to your neighbor's house, lest he be weary of thee. In other words, don't overstay your welcome. Little lessons like that, what I call sophistication in its earliest stages, are the foundation for success in the marketplace. Here's another one. Mama said, always eat before you go to the banquet so you don't appear hungry. Now I thought, but isn't that the point of a banquet? To eat. She said, no, the banquet is more about socializing than eating. She was right. Banquets are about engaging in conversation, making connections, building relationships. The food is secondary. By eating beforehand, you avoid the temptation to turn it into a feeding frenzy. And I'll tell you, I've been around a lot of people who could use that advice. Now, women have an advantage here. They've got finishing schools to help them refine their manners and presentation. But for men, no finishing schools for us. And I've met some men lately who clearly weren't finished. Someone once told me it's okay to be a self-made person, as long as you don't consider the job done too soon. Isn't that good advice? So you've got this now, right? It's good advice for personal development. Because remember, success isn't something you chase. Success is something you attract by becoming an attractive person. Attractive in your language, attractive in your skills, attractive in your social conduct. And let me tell you, all of this is vitally important. Now, here is the next one, your code of conduct. It's not a bad idea to take some time, just a quiet moment for yourself. And sit down to think about this. Write it out if you want. Ask yourself, what is my code? How do I want to show up in the marketplace? What do I want to achieve? And how am I going to achieve it? What principles will guide me every step of the way? You see, businesses do this all the time before they launch. They'll gather their team and say, here's how we're going to do business. Here's the standard we're going to uphold. Here's what we'll never compromise on. Because this is the reputation we want to build. And then they hold themselves accountable to that code. Now, why not do that in your personal life? Create your own code of conduct. Ask yourself, what do I want to be known for? What kind of reputation do I want to carry? And here's the key. Identify the behaviors or habits that might be working against you and make a conscious effort to replace them with something better. This is how you move from carelessness that could harm your reputation to a state of intentionality that builds the right one. It's a shift, and it starts with your code. Let me give you an example. Dr. J. Julius Erving, one of the greatest basketball players of all time. You know he was the first $6 million man, not in Reconstruction, but in terms of his value. Philadelphia paid $3 million just to get him on the team, and another $3 million for his salary. Julius was phenomenal. He wasn't just a spectacular player. He was a class act on and off the court. They called him Dr. J for the way he operated on the basketball floor. But beyond the game, he had a way of carrying himself that earned respect. A sports writer once asked him, Julius, what's the secret to your success? And here's what Julius said. I demand more of myself than anyone else could possibly dream up. Wow. I demand more of myself than anyone else could possibly dream of. What a powerful code to live by. Julius was essentially saying, I hold myself to a higher standard than anyone else ever could. I know when I'm doing my best, and I know when I'm falling short. And I won't let myself off the hook. That's what makes someone great. Not just talent, but the internal drive to expect more of themselves than anyone else does. Because in the end, the greatest thing you can build isn't just a business or a career. It's you. And your code, that's the blueprint. Now let me share with you another concept, one that can truly change your financial future if you take it to heart. It's called How to Be Successful in Sales. I've got 3 straightforward steps to share with you. They're simple, but don't mistake simplicity for lack of power. If you follow these steps, I'm confident financial struggles won't be your problem anymore. Over the years, I've had the privilege of speaking to people from all walks of life across the globe. Many of them work in sales, selling products, services, ideas. And one of the most frequent questions I hear is, how can I become more successful in sales? It's an important question because sales is not just a job. It's an opportunity to master the art of communication, persuasion, and leadership. When I was 25, Mr. Schaaf gave me advice that changed my life. He told me that success in sales wasn't just about making money. It was a gateway to learning profound lessons about people, life, and how to build a lifestyle worth living. And he was right. Sales is a noble profession, a chance to influence others, create change, and grow into the best version of yourself. The first step is straightforward, but it's foundational, and there's no substitute for it. Talk to lots of people every single day. Whenever I meet someone in sales who tells me they're struggling, my first question is always the same. How many people did you talk to yesterday? Most of the time, instead of a clear number, I get a story. They tell me about distractions, other tasks, or how nothing went as planned. The truth is, they didn't talk to anyone yesterday. And there's the problem. Success in sales begins with consistent action, and that means talking to people every day. At the end of the day, make it a habit to jot down how many people you talk to. Write it in your journal. I talked to 10 people today, 5 people, 3 people. Whatever the number is, track it. Because numbers tell a story, and in sales, they're your scoreboard. Just like a baseball player needs to know their batting average, you need to know your ratios. Contacts to presentations, presentations to closes, closes to income. Track the figures because the figures don't lie. Let me tell you, there's one thing we should never do as we go through life, and that's kid ourselves. Self-deception is one of the worst traps to fall into. Imagine a man walking in the rain, looking for a sunrise. He's soaked, confused, and doesn't even realize why. That's what it's like to live in a delusion. Now, when it comes to success in sales, the first principle is straightforward. Talk to lots of people every single day. And don't stop there. Track the numbers at the end of the day. Write them down. That way you can look back over last week, last month, and see where the gaps are, where the problems might be hiding. If you follow this one principle, I can promise you 2 things will happen. First, you're going to make sales. It's inevitable. Even if you're brand new, even if your presentation isn't perfect, you'll close some deals if you talk to enough people. Why? Because people buy for all kinds of reasons. Some of them, honestly, are downright strange. For instance, some people buy out of sympathy. They feel for the salesperson. They don't want to see your kid go hungry. If you deliver a sincere presentation, even if it's clunky, someone will buy simply because they're kind-hearted. You just happen to be the next person in their path. Then there are others who buy for another odd reason. They can. I've had conversations with people of means, and when they ask, why should I buy this from you? I answer honestly, because you can. I talk to people all day long who can't, but you can. So let's make it happen. And you know what? That works. Sometimes people buy simply because they have the ability. Even if your pitch is shaky, even if you find yourself saying you wouldn't want to buy anything, would you? Somebody will say, actually, I might. What are you selling? And just like that, the process begins. The point is, if you talk to enough people, sales will happen. The second thing that happens when you talk to lots of people is this: you'll get better. It's a law of life. Repetition builds skill. I'll admit, when I first started speaking, I wasn't very good. In fact, the first time I stood up to give a lecture, my body stayed there, but my mind walked off the stage. My knees were knocking, sweat was pouring down my face, and I couldn't get a single word out. I was shaking like a leaf. It was pure terror. But here's what I learned. If you keep doing it over and over, you get better. The same applies to sales. The more people you talk to, the sharper your skills become, and the more natural the process feels. It's not magic, it's practice. Let's say you're just starting out in sales. You talk to 10 people, 9 say no, but 1 says yes. Now that one yes is critical for your financial success. It pays the bills. But don't overlook the 9 who said no, because they're just as important. Why? They're your practice. And practice is how you grow. The more you practice, the better you'll get at the job. So here's the question. How long do you want it to take to get good at what you do? If you want to shorten that learning curve, talk to lots of people every day. Not just for the sales results, but for the progress. Because every no refines your skills. And when you're talking to people every day, you're tapping into what we call the law of averages. And let me tell you, the law of averages works for everyone. It's as reliable as the rising sun. Now, if you do something often enough, you'll start to see a pattern, a ratio of results. For example, if you talk to 10 people and 1 says yes, you've got a ratio 1 out of 10. And the amazing thing about ratios is that once they start, they tend to continue. Talk to 10 more, and you'll likely get another yes. Talk to 10 more, there's another one. It's predictable, it's powerful, and it's how success builds momentum. Now, you might think 1 out of 10, that's not very good, but here's the beauty of it. At first, it doesn't matter how good it is. What matters is getting the ratio started, because once you know your ratio, you can compete. Let's say I'm new, and my ratio is 1 out of 10. You've been at this for a while, and your ratio is 9 out of 10. If we're in a month-long contest, I'm going to win. Why? Because I'll talk to 100 people and get 10 sales, while you'll talk to just 10 people and get 9. I win not because I'm better, but because I make up for my lack of skill with sheer numbers. That's the first step to success in sales. Talk to lots of people every day. There's no shortcut, no substitute for it. Numbers create momentum, and momentum creates results. Now, here's step 2. Be real nice. And let me tell you, there's no substitute for this one either. Your attitude makes all the difference, not just in the results you get, but in how people respond to you. In fact, we've learned something fascinating about communication. It's 80% what you feel, and only 20% what you know. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it. Attitude shapes everything. It affects how others perceive you, how they feel about your product, and ultimately how successful you'll be in sales. People care about how you feel. Your sincerity, your energy, your belief in yourself, your product, and the future. If you're positive, if you feel good, if you've worked on your personality and your skills, your presentation will have a whole new level of impact. But let me emphasize, this takes practice. Because life doesn't always make it easy to be nice. Some days the weather's bad, the problems are heavy, and the world feels like it's working against you. But that's when it matters most. Practice being nice, even when it's tough. And over time, it'll become part of who you are. We all have a tendency to slip into the negative side of things. It's human nature. But let me tell you, the real challenge and the real opportunity is to resist that pull. Be nice when the weather isn't. Be nice when other people aren't. Be nice when the circumstances seem to be working against you. Why? Because your attitude, that daily effort to stay positive and practice being nice, is what makes the biggest difference in how your sales ratio plays out. Now, being nice doesn't just mean smiling and nodding. It means working harder on yourself than you do on your prospect. Most people in sales think I need to work hard on the prospect. But that's not where the magic happens. The real work is on you. Work on your personality. Work on your language. Work on your style, your presentation, your timing. Learn to find that balance. Not talking too long, not too little, but just right. Now, being nice doesn't just mean smiling and nodding. It means working harder on yourself than you do on your prospect. Most people in sales think, I need to work hard on the prospect. But that's not where the magic happens. The real work is on you. Work on your personality. Work on your language. Work on your style, your presentation, your timing. Learn to find that balance. Not talking too long, not too little, but just right. And here's a big one. Develop the skill to truly understand people's challenges. When someone shares their struggles, acknowledge them. Say, John, I know what you mean. I've been there. I've had tough times making decisions just like you're facing now. Understanding, empathy, sincerity. That's what builds trust. Combine that with commitment, courage, and genuine excitement. And you'll see how much those qualities shift your sales results. So yes, step 2, being real nice, is critical. Now let's move to step 3. This one is a cornerstone of long-term success. Give good service. There's no substitute for it. At the end of each day, take a moment to reflect and grade yourself on the service you provided. Ask yourself, did I earn an A today? Did I follow through with my customers? Did I go the extra mile? Because let me tell you, the real work begins after you've made the sale. The sale isn't the end, it's the beginning. Did you send a thank you note? Did you follow up with a phone call? Excellent service isn't just a nice to have. It's where the big money is. One happy customer, well taken care of, will open doors for you that you could never open on your own. They'll introduce you to people, refer you to opportunities, and vouch for you in ways you can't imagine. And here's a little secret. Most people don't do this. Most people don't write the thank you notes. Most people don't make the follow-up calls. Most people don't smile as much as they should, but if you do, if you focus on the little things, those details that others overlook, you'll stand out. At the end of the day, ask yourself, did I give my best in service today? Was it an A, a B, or was it a D? You didn't follow through. Maybe an F, it just wasn't your day. Whatever the grade, the key is to reflect, learn, and plan for improvement. Good service means staying in touch. Call them before they call you. Write the notes most don't write. Do the things most won't bother to do. When you make service a part of your daily sales program, you'll see the difference. Your efforts will compound. Your relationships will strengthen. And your overall sales will skyrocket.